Therapists of Reddit, what was your biggest "I know I'm not supposed to judge you but holy shit" moment? Warning, some audiences may find this content disturbing. View at your own discretion. Welcome to the House of Reddit. Today, we share some r/AskReddit posts from Reddit. Therapists of Reddit, what was your biggest "I know I'm not supposed to judge you but holy shit" moment? Two things I have experienced that may be more peek behind the curtain than most would like to say. 1. Good clinical staffers are constantly looking to place the right patient with the right therapist. For instance, I am particularly good at motivating patients for therapy, CBT, exploring spiritual/philosophical lines of thought, and working with trauma. I am not a medicating provider. I am a male and have a military background. My peers and staff know generally what kind of patient responds well to me, and funnel them my way. Other providers will hand off to me directly after an intake and take another new case from me and trade when we think it would be best for the patient. Each of us has our strengths and weaknesses, and a good team works with them as often as possible. It doesn't always work out, but we try our best. 2. Clinical staffers take time to process with each other. Patient stuff can be heavy, draining, or horrifying. Patients will fail in their goals. Patients will die or suffer further tragedy. I have always had a supervisor or peer who I could go to and process with. I have on more than one occasion gone to outside therapists. Shit gets real, folks, and we are not immune. We all have an upward limit to how much we can deal with, and expecting to never find that limitation is wishful thinking. We are not saints, robots, or made of stone. It may seem to some that that's the ideal, and some patients expect us to be more than human, so they don't feel bad about dumping on us. However, it's kind of the point that we feel, and empathize, and are still willing to be there. After 20 years of hospitality, it's amazing how professions mirror each other. Solid restaurants have servers swap or take tables, when the server's identity/appearance is clearly not going to go over well with the table, or the table's attitude is not going over well with the server. Good servers understand that helping out a coworker, in an effort to not destroy the whole shift, is worth it in the long run. Serving can be high stress, intense, fast and chaotic. People can be crappy, coworkers can be lazy, and management can be inept. The only folks that really understand, getting triple sat, while neck deep in the weeds, are the ones who walk the trenches with you, and they are quite often where a large portion of your friends come from, and certainly where that hour in the parking lot is spent, venting over the shift you just got out of, so you don't go home and take it out on your family, or the bottle of Jack on the counter. Professional line cooks behave the same way quite often, as well as nurses, police, and many other high-stress positions. I really doubt anyone understands what an air traffic controller's day is like, and how to help them down from a shift, or near miss, except another controller, and there's definitely a reason that CPS workers tend to burn out, or stop caring so quickly, as most work a heavy caseload alone, with little support or help. I wish we would take mental health more seriously as a country, not just for the populace, but especially for all the caregiving, law-keeping, danger-dodging professionals that are often too worn to even consider the damage being done to themselves by the time their day ends. Lots of people discussing pedophilia as an example of the toughest stuff to not judge despite our training. I haven't yet treated a pedophile, thankfully. At least not an identified one. I did run a men's anger management group though, and some of those men had done some terrible things to women. Most of them I found ways to like and admire for their positive aspects, but there were two guys in that group I just could never find unconditional positive regard for. One guy basically never spoke in group. He would give one-word answers and occasionally just discuss how unfair the system was to him. I worked really hard to open him up and find things to connect over, but he never opened up to me or the group. He left the group after he strangled his girlfriend and went to jail. She survived, thankfully. The other left group early routinely, showed up late, participated minimally, and similarly never wanted to open up honestly. He left early one group after we had discussed him staying to the end and threatened me when I told him he wasn't going to get credit for attendance, something the court required. Oddly, I eventually moved into the apartment below him, completely without knowledge, and listened to him scream at his girlfriend and break shit while I called the cops. I judge these men. They're shitty. Maybe they're redeemable, but redemption requires self-exploration and they both refuse to do so. It's worth noting how differently I felt about them than so many others in the group, men I found ways to help and admire and respect even in spite of their awful behavior in the past. I work in mental health and have worked in acute and crisis settings for the majority of my career. The most notable event I experienced was when a young person had presented with significant ongoing suicidal ideation who was dealing with a lot of shit. I spent a lot of time with them, mostly de-escalation and working out what the plan should be moving forward. One of their parents came in a little while later and I had the opportunity to speak to them about where their child was and what had been going on, with their consent of course. Midway through me trying to explain some of the psychological constructs and ways the parent could help, they said to me, "Is this going to take much longer? I have a show to go and watch." All I can say is, I never judge my patients, I have never walked their path or viewed the world through their eyes. But the people around them who perpetuate the suffering of the people I work with through ignorance, malice and selfishness, I judge them. Edit and a shameless one. I've tried to reply to as much as I could. I've enjoyed some of what I would assume is trolling and talking about some other people's experiences as it's given me a chance to reflect on some of my own stuff. But I must go to bed. I'd like to ask one thing of anyone who reads this: remember that you can help, even just by asking how someone is or wishing them well. People who you think may be struggling and even people who aren't. This year has been hard on us all, and I appreciate all of you who have said that those in care services have difficult jobs, but we have all struggled this year. Please be as kind as you can to each other, and I hope we can all look forward to a good December and even better New Year. Ah yes, the good old no one's prepared to be a parent, so give it a try anyway. And you become a better person when you become a parent. No, dude. If you're not prepared, you at least try to get ready for the life-changing responsibility that it is to raise a whole-ass new human being. You read. You take classes. You ask. You volunteer. You're going to be in charge of another human for 18 plus years, and you will define this new person's worldview, behavior, emotions, experiences and morals for the first years of their life. Once you realize how big of an impact parents have on their children, it's not surprising at all when people who know they're not prepared or even interested in such responsibility choose to not have children. It's actually the best thing they can do. And don't even get me started with the "you'll be a better person" bullshit. How many drug addicts, alcoholics, smokers and abusers actually increase their bad habits due to the stress of having to take care of kids? Parents would be saints if this belief was true. Sure, being a parent makes you give your best out of you, but it also makes the worst come out of you if you're not ready for the responsibility as stated above. But then again, there's people out there having kids by accident and keeping them by obligation. Of course there's a lot of fucked up people around when their parents can't even have proper control over their own lives, both in the "I wasn't allowed to make my own reproductive choice" sense and the "I don't give a damn, I go with the flow and see how it ends" sense. If you do become a parent and are divorced or not with your partner and you allow that parent to have majority or more custody, especially if you're a woman, you are seen as a monster. I'm a mom and I did not want kids. I got pregnant and my husband was so excited, and I was praying to miscarry. I couldn't bring myself to abort as I was an adult with a career and tons of loving supportive people around both me and my husband. I hoped that when my child was born I would feel differently. I didn't. I felt the insane protective instinct, but no blissful love. I was miserable, began to hate my husband and my life. I decided to leave my husband for many reasons, and I allowed him to have majority of custody. While I was unhappy being a mom, I still loved my child immensely, but was not equipped for full-time parenthood. I was told how selfish I was for letting my ex have my child. It was basically 70-30. I had family and friends and strangers judge me and tell me how messed up my kid would be. They thought I just wanted to go party and ignore my responsibilities. Do you know what's harder than staying and being a parent when you know it's not right for you? Realizing that and loving your child enough to know that having love and well-rounded people caring for them rather than forcing your misery on them is the best for them, even if every person you meet is judging what a cold, terrible person you must be to make that choice. I would rather my child see me less and have me be present, patient, and positive when we have our time together than being the full-time mom that is always angry and irritated. Yes, I am the one who messed up and shouldn't have had kids, but my ex is a far better dad than I could ever be as a mom, and I'm lucky to know that my child is always surrounded by love and a great environment for them to grow up in. Not a licensed therapist but a behavioral health technician, basically, means I got a psych degree. I was trained in behavioral intervention techniques for children and was off helping coach parents to support children with behavior disorders. I'll say this, I rarely encountered a child that had a clear mental illness in the same way as when I worked with adults with serious mental illness. In many ways, they were visibly confused or lonely. Given that most of their parents were suffering from poverty, alleviating the burdens of being poor would have likely mitigated the most severe symptoms of many of the children. Advocating for affordable childcare and livable minimum wages is mental health advocacy. I found myself judging, not the children, but their parents. Some parents would drop the kids off with me and peace out with a fix my kid attitude. As a parent, now, I get some of it, exhaustion and burnout are real. But the best I could do in that situation was provide that kid with an hour-long vision of what it looks like to live in a loving, structured environment. Those kids were the ones I could tell who were much more likely to be subject to the system for the duration of their lives. Either cycles of institutionalization and homelessness or prison. When a concerned parent showed up and asked, "How do I help my kid?" I practically jumped for joy for the child because they had someone who loved them and was fighting for them. I'm a dude. I was brutally raped multiple times between the ages of 7 and 10. My one and only attempt at trying to get help from a therapist was one of the most awful experiences of my life. I attempted to get help in my early 20s. Upon first going in, I was asked what had happened to me, after explaining a basic outline of the abuse. I could already see that she was very dismissive and seemed not to really believe me. She then asked about my relationship status. At the time I was in a long-term relationship with a woman who had 2 kids, boys. Upon finding this out, she immediately demanded the names and address of my girlfriend, names of the kids, and said she would be immediately getting in touch with social services to ensure that I wasn't abusing them. I can't put into words just how much that destroyed me mentally, that she could obviously see something in me that I couldn't see. That somehow she was certain that I would be an abuser. I started to cry. She told me to pull myself together. I also can't put into words the pathological visceral hatred I have for pedophiles and rapists. If I could get away with murdering them, I would. I would never ever inflict the absolute nightmare I went through on any child. I got up and left. I came very close to the edge of suicide that day. I also immediately ended the relationship because I couldn't deal with the thought that the kids might be at risk because of me. It's now 21 years later and I'm tearing up typing this. Because of that experience, I have never sought therapist help again. I survive mentally, but it's not good survival. I am absolutely blown away by the internet strangers who are sending love and care to me. I am currently alone, in the dark, in tears, reading all these replies. To answer a few questions. I'm in the UK. I heard she was fired a few years later after a patient of hers committed suicide and mentioned her therapy and the note he left. I am in a position where currently I'm in such a fragile, very heavily medicated, mental state that if I saw another therapist and got the same reaction, that I know my mind would break and I'd take my own life. Every day is a struggle to find reasons to stay alive. I'm sure I have PTSD as I feel the need to be armed with a knife constantly, despite being a big dude, 6 feet 4 inches, 110 kilograms, I sleep with a knife under my pillow. I often wake up screaming. I tend to be standoffish with everyone, deliberately keeping people at a distance. I know I'm a broken person. I've even avoided relationships with women with kids because I don't want my broken mental state to somehow affect those kids in any way. I have attempted suicide twice and both times I survived. I just want there to be a pill or operation where I could completely wipe out the past, even wipe me out, wake up and just have a new me, minus the depression, anxiety, fear, PTSD, crushing hatred of myself. It would be nice to wake up one day and actually be able to see some value in myself. I'd love to be married and be a dad, but currently I'm in a state where I can't ever see or allow that to happen. I'm too scared that my mental state would fuck up my wife and kids' lives. I can't allow that. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments below. Turn on the notifications to know when we post new videos. Thank you for coming to the House of Reddit.